Everybody, listen carefully.
You're listening to the SEC Insider Hit on the Bo Pound Show.
Fueled by Fleetway Market.
Fuel up your car and cooler at Fleetway this football season.
Let's go.
I think Tommy nailed it on the Ag Up Equipment text line. He said, I think I'm done keeping up with recruiting. I'll see who's on the roster in August. Ole Miss just lost 4 guys, and they're about to pick up 4 guys. It's too damn much to keep up with. And you damn sure can't keep up with all the SEC teams anymore. Tommy's a huge Ole Miss fan, and he nailed it. I've thought about that the last few weeks. Should I go over, like, every transfer portal move? And I'm like, is that what you really want? I mean, I know there are shows that do that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I agree with you, Tommy. There's so much ebb and flow. Let's just wait until it all, kind of shakes out. Of course, then the portal opens up again in May, Tommy, so we get to do that again. All I can say is Holy Mary Olzab. The Out of Bounds Show is brought to you by Spring Street Cigars. I'll be there tomorrow afternoon in Starkville. Beautiful 2-story brick, exposed beams, 2 humidors, 2 bars. Let's see, wraparound balcony. It's one of the prettiest cigar shops in the Southeast. Spring Street Cigars in Starkville. Also Tupelo, Oxford, Kosciuszko, Meridian, 2 in DeSoto County, and Jackson, Tennessee. All right, we are the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone, and we are streaming live on thezone1059.com and the Out of Bounds radio app. We're excited to welcome in our next guest, Ross Tucker, NFL insider, host of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. And you can check out Ross on social media at Ross Tucker NFL. He played in the NFL, played at Princeton, calls games, has shows. He's everywhere, fills in for Dan Patrick, which is really cool. I've listened to him many times doing that. And he also talks a lot about food, which, speaking of, because it's National Cheese Day and Boar's Head is a great partner of ours, and we want you to put together a Boar's Head charcuterie board on Saturday for the games. And on Sunday, shout out to Boar's Head, premium meats, cheeses, and hummus. Boar's Head, compromise elsewhere. We welcome in Ross Tucker. Ross, good morning. How are you, buddy?
I am awesome, and I already have a bunch of things to say just based on listening to you for 30 seconds. First of all, I, too, am a huge fan of Boar's Head, so I love that they're one of your sponsors. I didn't even know today was National Cheese Day. I'm a big American cheese guy, but I'm a big fan of Boar's Head, so I already like your show. Secondly, where exactly in Mississippi are you, and how far is it from either Oxford or Starkville?
Okay, good. I like that you asked that. I'm in Jackson, Mississippi. It's the capital. It's almost 600,000 people metro area. That's big for us. We are less than 2 hours from Starkville. I went to Mississippi State undergrad and grad, and we're 2+ hours from Oxford. And so our 4 big listener alumni fan bases are Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Alabama, and LSU, because Bama and LSU are only 2.5 hours away from us too, Ross.
Okay, so wait, break down right now. There's 100 people listening. What percentage of each is their college fandom? Like, how many like State? How many like Ole Miss? How many like Bama? How many like LSU?
I'd go 30 Mississippi State, 30 Ole Miss, and then 2020.
Wow, it's that diverse, huh?
Yeah. We have a lot of street fans because Bama has, as you know, has won post-World War II since Paul Bear Bryant got there. And so State and Ole Miss have had their good times and bad times, and people have gravitated to Bama over the years. So it's some alums and some street and a lot of street fans. And then since Saban got there, well, South Mississippi is LSU, but since Saban got there in 2000 and then they continued to win pretty much, you've got even more street fans for down the Mississippi River with LSU.
So that's interesting. So two thoughts on that. One, my teammate, my first couple of years, we were rookies together with Washington. 2001 was Fred Smoot from Jackson, Mississippi.
He comes on the show all the time.
Oh, does he? Yeah. So Fred and I were. He was an awesome player. I mean, awesome. And so Fred and I were rookies together, 2001 with Marty Schottenheimer, and that's number one. And number two, this year I had the honor to do the Ole Miss Alabama game on CBS in that 3:30 slot because Gary Danielson and Brad Nessler did the night game that night, Iowa Penn State, and that was like a bucket list. I had never been to Tuscaloosa. To be in that booth, like the Vern Lundquist booth and Ole Miss, Bam, and obviously they ended up having a great season, both of them. It was really, really cool. So love that I'm on with you. Thank you so much for having me. Let's rock and roll.
Let's do it. Yeah, my dad went to the University of Alabama. We're over there all the time too. And here's the deal. I tweeted this, and we talked about it on Monday. And I'm not just saying this because we have really cool people on the show, but you did a great job on that game. Y'all did, and you did especially. So props to you.
Ole Miss, Alabama?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. You know, when that was my first SEC game, and I know people are always like, well, who's this guy or whatever, but it was awesome. It was a great game. It was such a cool atmosphere. The SEC, college football, it's incredible. So I really appreciate you saying that. It was cool, man. I mean, to talk to Lane on a Zoom and then to meet Saban in person. It's funny because I asked Gary Danielson, I said, you know, any advice for talking to Saban? And he said, yeah, he likes talking about the NFL. Like he likes talking about his NFL days. And so I realized that I actually played against Saban. The only game I played for the Patriots, the last game of 2005, was against Saban's Miami Dolphins. And the Patriots had just signed me a couple weeks earlier, and yet they played me the whole second half of the game. And so I said to Saban, I'm like, you know, Coach, I'm not sure that Belichick really wanted to win the game because he played me the whole second half, even though I just got. He loved that. He started dying laughing. He loved that and started telling, you know, Belichick Cleveland Brown stories from the '90s. So it was great.
That is so good. Ross Tucker, NFL insider, host of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, joining us on the Farm Bureau Insurance Guest Line. This is ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Okay, I got to ask you this. What do you like better, doing your show, the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, or filling in for Dan Patrick? Or do you like doing color on Westwood One or like you did for CBS? Which one do you like better, hosting shows or being there and calling the game, Ross?
So that's a really good question that nobody's ever asked me. So first of all, without question, my favorite thing is doing games. Because I love radio shows too, because TV, you know, everything is so sort of, I don't want to say scripted, but TV, studio television is very heavily produced to the point where you kind of know what the other people are going to say before the show. I'm not a big fan of studio television at all. That's my least favorite thing to do, which is not one of the options you gave me, but I'm just pointing that out. What I like about the Dan Patrick Show, and which is why I love it, is number one, I don't do it that often, and so it still is cool and unique every time I do it. But also, you know, 6 minutes into the show, we'll start talking about something we'll start talking about cheese, right? And I'll go off on, like, you know, how are there people in society that will purchase Swiss cheese when American is staring you in the face? Like, who does that? Are there people that actually on National Cheese Day, are there people that actually think Swiss cheese tastes better than American? Is that a thing in the world? Because I can't imagine tasting those two cheeses and be like, oh yeah, I guess Swiss is healthier, and if it's a health thing, I get it. But there's no way anybody has taste buds that makes them think that Swiss cheese is better than American cheese. Anyway, so that's the type of stuff that happens on the Dan Patrick Show. But the games is the closest I can get to playing, right? So I mean this when I say that my first love of my life is football. Okay, when I was 4 or 5, my parents took me to a Penn State game. I'm a Yankee from up in Pennsylvania. They took me to a Penn State game, and when I walked in and I saw the greenest grass I'd ever seen in my life, and I saw those Penn State blue and white uniforms, and then there's 95 or 100,000, whatever it was back then, I looked at my parents and said, this is what I'm going to do. I was like 5. And keep in mind, my dad, 5'9", $165. I never thought I'd be an NFL offensive lineman, to say the least. I just knew I loved it. And so I miss it every day. I miss playing football, but doing a game like tomorrow, I'll drive down to Baltimore. It's nice that I live in central Pennsylvania in the capital, Harrisburg, and Baltimore is only an hour and 15 minutes south. It's nice that I get to do that. But the adrenaline, the energy, you never know what's going to happen every play. And trying to be able to teach the audience and describe it. And for me, I always feel like this. I feel like if someone learns something, if they laugh a couple times, and if they can tell that I'm having an awesome time and I love what I can do, that's a win. If they felt like they learned one thing, they laughed one time, and they could just tell that I really appreciate my job and I know how lucky I am, that's all I hope someone gets from one of my broadcasts. So I would say the TV versus radio part of that is tough, because radio I can say whatever I want, which is cool, but TV, it's cool to have the telestrator and the replay. And also, you have more people typically watching.
Absolutely.
So I'd probably say TV won, but TV and radio are closer than people would think.
I enjoyed y'all calling the Ole Miss Bama game. We're visiting with Ross Tucker, played in the NFL, played at Princeton, doing a little bit of everything and doing well in sports media, host of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. And you can follow him on social media at Ross Tucker NFL. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance Guest Line, and this interview is brought to you by Boar's Head, Compromise Elsewhere. All right, Ross, I got several different things I want to get into, but first off, I want you to tell our listeners about myfrontpagestory.com.
I'm glad you said that. Thank you. It's actually a buddy of mine started the company. He's a newspaper writer, and I'm telling you, it is the best Valentine's Day gift I've ever heard of. So I know a lot of people, you don't know what to get your significant other. Trust me, check out myfrontpagestory.com. You talk to a writer while you're driving home from work or Chick-fil-A or whatever for 10 minutes. Tell them how great your significant other, your wife, whoever, your girlfriend, I don't care, boyfriend, whatever. Tell them how great they are. They write this story. It looks like it's on the cover of the newspaper. It's framed. It's beautiful pictures of you and her. And then the key is when you give it to her, to be able to say, hey, hon, I wanted something special, so I had a story written about you. That sounds like the most romantic, unique gift of all time, because it is. And then honestly, here's the money quote. If anybody's thinking about doing this, which you should, make sure you tell the writer, I just never thank her enough for all the little things she does for me or me and the kids or whatever. I'm telling you, dude, every time I see somebody read this and they get to that line, they cry. Your wife, your girlfriend, they will cry. You will win. It's called myfrontpagestory.com, myfrontpagestory.com. Then they have it hanging up in the house forever. So it's like the gift that keeps on giving, myfrontpagestory.com.
I love it. Ross Tucker on the Out of Bounds Show, NFL Insider. You're listening to ESPN 105.9 The Zone. All right, I want to talk about your game, and then I want to talk about my favorite player who people love to beat up on, who didn't have a good weekend last weekend, Dak Prescott and the Cowboys, and you played for the Cowboys for a year. But first, can the Texans – how did the Texans at 9.5 points, spread's 9.5, how did the Texans make this a close game in Baltimore in the game that you're calling tomorrow, Ross?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, first of all, Lamar Jackson and the Ravens have really struggled in the playoffs since he's been there. He's 1-3. He has 4 total touchdowns and 7 turnovers. So I guess number one, hope that happens and that Lamar doesn't play very well. Number two, I think it's really important to get off to a fast start, right? When you're the heavy underdog like that, you want to try to put the pressure on the number one seed. They're playing at home. You want that crowd to get like anxiety, right? To be anxious about what's going on out there on the field. So that's a big part of it. So I think a fast start is really important. Try to put the pressure on the Ravens. And then the other two things are kind of for any underdog, but they're going to have to win the turnover battle, which the Texans, one of the things that's amazing to me about the Texans, they have an NFL low 14 turnovers. 14 turnovers with a rookie quarterback? That's insane. And so they got to win the turnover battle. Probably got to be +2 and then hit on a big play or two, which is certainly possible. I mean, Marlon Humphrey is out for the Ravens, their best cover corner. And then you've got, Nico Collins and C.J. Stroud, and what they've been able to do with this passing attack certainly gives the Texans sort of a puncher's chance. So fast start, hope that Lamar has a subpar game like he has in the playoffs, hit on a big play or two, maybe it's to the tight end, Brevin Jordan, and then win the turnover battle.
I love it. Ross Tucker, host of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Also check him out on social media at Ross Tucker NFL. He also loves to talk about food, which we do all the time, and I like how he incorporates that into covering football. Okay, the Buccaneers and the Lions. I love the story around the fighting kneecap biters and Dan Campbell, and he was down here near us with the Saints under Sean Payton. But my son, who's a freshman in college, is a big Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, by the way, before Brady got there. So I'm kind of torn, but I love Dan Campbell, but I love what Todd Bowles is doing. It's 6.5. Is that too many, Ross, Sunday?
No, I think it's about the right number, to be honest with you. We talked about it on the Even Money betting podcast this week, which is really popular. The Bucs aren't playing that great. And I know they beat the Eagles badly Monday night. But first of all, for the Bucs, it's a short week because they played Monday night. Secondly, I was on the sideline Sunday night, and they are going into an absolute hornet's nest. I mean, that was an electric atmosphere. It'll probably even more so on Sunday. And if you remember, I mean, the Bucs kind of got smashed by the Saints a couple weeks ago. Then they beat the Panthers 9-0, but that included the Panthers having 2 touchdowns taken off the board. I just think they're going to have to really play well. Baker's going to have to hit Godwin and Evans for a bunch of big plays because the Lions' only weakness really, in my mind, is their corners. Their corners aren't good. So Baker has to have a great game, but I actually kind of would lean towards laying those points with the Lions in that game. I think the Rams team that the Lions just beat, I think they're a better team than the Bucs.
Not fair enough. I agree with that. Okay. Ross Tucker on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. All right. I want to talk food the next few minutes, and we've got about 5 minutes here. When did you start to incorporate, you go to all these press boxes and then you talk about food, and I also want to know who has the best press box food in the NFL. But when did you decide to start incorporating food into your social media and your business?
It's a really good question. I don't remember the exact time, but I think I started by on my show on Mondays, I would grade the press box food, and people just loved it. So then I started to video it, and people, first of all, you can never go wrong, I've learned, talking about food. Like, I don't know if you know or you saw this, at Ross Tucker NFL on social media, but Jason Kelsey recently went through the drive-thru at McDonald's, and he goes there a lot, and he gave the McDonald's worker a signed jersey, which is Jason Kelsey's awesome and whatever. And I replied, and I said, guarantee he ordered a sausage McMuffin with egg because it's the greatest sandwich of all time. And Jason Kelsey replied, and I know him a little bit. I wouldn't say we're friends, but we're friendly. And he said, you bleeping know it, 2 sausage, egg, and cheese, and a large coffee every time. And that went viral. People love to chime. Everybody can have opinions. Everybody can chime in on food. And so that's kind of how it started.
Well, that's a smart play by you for sure. Ross Tucker, at Ross Tucker NFL on social media, NFL Insider. He's calling the Texans Ravens tomorrow on radio. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Okay, best press box food in the NFL that you've been to?
You know who's really, really good is the Tampa Bay Bucks. Really good.
Holy smokes!
They have a number of really good entree options. They have a salad bar, and then they have Bananas Foster at halftime. And last time I was there, I had like 3 or 4 of those. The guy kept giving me a look, but there's no rules. This is like, there's no rules. So I just kept going up and getting more. It was amazing. That was actually Brady's playoff loss, I believe, to the Rams a couple years ago. And then I'm pretty partial to Green Bay. You get there, usually it's a noon game, Central Time. You get there at 9 a.m. or whatever, and they have an omelet station, which I love. So I usually crush the omelet station. And then before kickoff at like 11:30, 11:45, then I'll go. They have one of the best salad bars in the league. And then they always have a really good entree, like pulled pork and mac and cheese. They call it pack and cheese. So what I do is I put a whole bed of pulled pork, and then I put a little bit of mac and cheese on top, because I'm at the stage of my life where mac and cheese is more of a condiment, like more of a topping that goes on top of my pulled pork. And then at halftime, I have 2 brats. I have 2 brats in like 6-minute time frame with incredible spicy mustard. So Green Bay's way up there for me as well. And Dallas on Thanksgiving is just insane.
Oh, wow. All right. Well, unfortunately, we've got to take a break, but I got to have you back on in a few weeks or a month or so, because I could go on and on. I went to the Outback Bowl, or whatever it is now, because we went down. Mike Leach passed away, and we went down last year to Raymond James in the Bucs Stadium, and I could not, man, the spread that they had for the bowl game, Ross Tucker, was phenomenal. And
really?
Yeah, it was.
Those, they don't mess around. I respect that.
Hey, thank you so much for your time today. Congratulations on all your success. Host of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, and follow him on social media at Ross Tucker NFL. Ross Tucker, thanks, buddy. Have a great weekend, man.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
Ross Tucker on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. That interview was driven by your next Ford F-150 truck at Mack Hike Ford, I-55 North in Jackson. Jason, the best selection of Ford F-150 trucks, pre-owned and new, at Mack Hike Ford, I-55 North in Jackson. That was a fun interview. That dude's very talented. I love listening to him when he fills in for Dan Patrick. I thought he did a great job on the Ole Miss Bama game, too. Show is brought to you by Boar's Head. Put together a Boar's Head charcuterie board tomorrow and Sunday for the NFL games. Back in a sec. Here, today, 9:30.